Paris. Thank you very much for the update. I want to bring in now Tara Maller, former military analyst at the CIA and a research fellow at the New American Foundation. Tara, appreciate your being with us here on Thanksgiving. I want to ask you, in light of this meeting with French President Hollande and Vladimir Putin as well, when you have that disconnect as far as their objectives, do you see being productive as far as these meetings go?
Well, I don't think you're going to see a breakthrough. I think there is some room for cooperation. I think there's a shared interest in fighting ISIS after the attacks in Paris and the downing of a Russian plane. So I think you're going to see them present a strong, united front in terms of the rhetoric of fighting terrorism, but what that actually means in terms of military coordination, sharing, creating joint target sets, I don't think we're going to see a real strong military coalition. There's still a lot of differences at play here between the French and the Russians.
Well, given that, and you think of ultimately what Vladimir Putin's goal is, especially at this point, what is the calculation there in defeating ISIS? When you talk about tangibles, what can be changed? Hypothetically, they can say, yes, our goal is to defeat ISIS, but then with a how, different story.
Exactly. I think you do see them actually wanting to take steps on terrorism because it is affecting them, as we saw with the Russian plane. But they're also striking more moderate rebels because they're trying to keep Assad in power. And that's the main sticking point. The United States has said it will not accept a solution that aims to keep Assad in power. The French might be a little bit more willing to let that rest for the purposes of discussion right now to see if there can be more cooperation. But the real sticking point is Russia is fighting ISIS, but they're fighting other groups as well, anti-regime groups, to bring those groups down to help bolster Assad, and that's the main sticking point.
Well, let's also talk about our involvement and the current administration and President Obama saying he's made it clear when it comes to our involvement, it's going to be through support, intelligence, stopping the flow of foreign fighters, choking the cash when it comes to this, but militarily, not so much. What do you say to the critics who say, you know what, now is our time? And even people in his own party, Dianne Feinstein, Leon Panetta, before it said, you know what, we need to do more now.
I think what you've seen is Obama commit to strong airstrikes. I think you've seen him put a lot of special force operations on the ground. I think you've seen him be hesitant to put in ground troops because right now we don't really see a clear strategy of what those ground troops would be doing. It would require big numbers. And to be honest, the American public, while thinking Obama has not been doing enough, they also don't show strong support for putting troops on the ground. So I agree that I don't think he's articulated a clear strategy on next steps and how to solve this problem. At the end of the day, you're going to need to get countries together to create some sort of political negotiated settlement that involves probably the removal of Assad or some sort of agreement that's going to get this fighting to stop. It's not going to be fought through airstrikes alone, and it's not going to be something where we're sending in hundreds of thousands of troops right now, because I don't think the American public is going to support that, and I don't think Obama's going to do that right now.
Well, especially now that we're looking within our own borders, our own homeland, and keeping us safe here. It is Thanksgiving, the holiday season is upon us. People are kind of, you know, they're asked to be vigilant, but then you have the president who, along with President Hollande, came out and reassured the public. He did it again yesterday in saying we're working overtime and there is no credible threat. But what about the fear of lone wolves, of not necessarily ISIS attacks, but ISIS-inspired lone wolves, people acting alone, and soft targets at that?
Absolutely. I think it is a real threat. I think what the president said yesterday is accurate in that there's no sort of specific imminent threat, in that they don't see an actual plot, you know, in the intelligence reporting. But analysts, intelligence analysts, are working around the clock. They're looking at signals intelligence. They're looking at human intelligence. And I think the lone wolf small cell attack is a potential. It doesn't take a lot of coordination. It doesn't take a lot of communication. And it's something that law enforcement officials have been worried about for a while. So I think we need to remain vigilant, but the real strategy on that front is going to be in terms of law enforcement and intelligence here at home. And obviously we need to fight ISIS overseas, but what's going to prevent that is what the officials around the clock are doing, and we see them out in full force today in New York with the parade, and I saw them on the way here to the studio, so they're working overtime this holiday.
We see that on a federal level, on a local level, active shooter situations that have been practiced on that level too. Tara Maller, thank you. Appreciate your being with us here on Thanksgiving.
Thank you.